What happens when a rising Hollywood star refuses to stay quiet on live television, even when the entire panel pushes back? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. You can feel it before anything even happens. The energy is just different. The cameras are rolling, the audience is clapping, but there's this subtle tension in the room that doesn't quite match the usual upbeat tone. The hosts are smiling, the music fades out, and everyone settles into their seats. Sunny leans forward slightly, her expression already more focused than casual. We're back with Jenna Ortega, who's starring in one of the most talked about shows right now. Jenna, first of all, congratulations. The success has been incredible. Jenna smiles politely, nodding. Thank you, I appreciate that. It's been a lot, but it's exciting. Joy jumps in quickly, her tone lighter. I mean, you can't go anywhere without people talking about you. It's like, overnight, you became this voice for a whole generation. Jenna gives a small laugh, a little hesitant. I don't know if I'd say that, but I'm definitely grateful for the support. Sunny tilts her head slightly. But that comes with responsibility, right? Especially when you start speaking out on social issues. A lot of young people look up to you now. There's a brief pause. Jenna shifts in her seat just a bit. I think people should think for themselves. I don't really see myself as someone who should tell others what to believe. The audience murmurs lightly. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle reaction. Sunny notices it and leans in more. But you do speak out, Sunny continues. You've made statements recently that sparked quite a bit of debate. Some people feel like you're using your platform in a way that's, let's say, a little dismissive of opposing views. Jenna's expression changes, not defensive yet, but more serious. I wouldn't say dismissive. I just think it's important to be honest about what I believe, even if it's not what everyone agrees with. Whoopi steps in, trying to keep the balance. And that's fair. This is a place for conversation. We don't all agree here either. Trust me, she says with a small laugh, glancing at the other hosts. The audience chuckles, easing the tension for a second. But Sunny isn't done. Honesty is important, yes. But there's also impact. When you say certain things, millions of people hear it. Don't you think there's a responsibility to be more careful? Jenna doesn't answer immediately. She takes a breath, then looks directly at Sunny. I think there's also a responsibility to not silence yourself just because people might disagree. That lands. You can feel it. There's a louder murmur from the audience this time, some claps, some uncertainty. Joy raises her eyebrows. Oh, we're getting into it early today, she says, half joking, half not. Sunny keeps her gaze steady. No one's saying you should silence yourself. But there's a difference between expressing an opinion and potentially influencing people in a way that could be harmful. Jenna's posture straightens. Harmful according to who? That question shifts the room completely. There's a brief silence. One of those rare live TV moments where no one jumps in right away. Sunny blinks, clearly not expecting that direct of a response. Well, harmful in the sense that misinformation or strong opinions without context can lead people to make decisions that aren't in their best interest. Jenna nods slowly, but there's a firmness in her voice now. I understand that, but I also think it's dangerous to assume that people can't think critically for themselves. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm sharing my perspective. A few audience members clap louder this time. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. All right, let's keep this respectful. This is a conversation, not a courtroom. Sunny exhales, but she doesn't back down. And I respect that, Whoopi. I'm just trying to understand where Jenna draws the line. Because when you have influence, whether you want it or not, your words carry weight. Jenna nods again. I agree with that. But I don't think the solution is to filter yourself to the point where you're no longer being real. People can tell when you're not authentic. Joy jumps in again, leaning toward Jenna. But authenticity can also be complicated. Sometimes being real can come off as insensitive, even if that's not the intention. Jenna looks at her. I think intention matters, though. Sunny immediately responds. Impact matters more. That line hits harder than anything said so far. The audience reacts again, this time more divided. Some clap, others stay quiet. Jenna pauses. You can see she's thinking carefully now. I don't disagree that impact matters. But I think people are too quick to judge impact without actually listening to what's being said. Sunny shakes her head slightly. Or maybe people are listening, and that's why they're reacting. There's a noticeable shift in tone now. The polite back and forth is starting to feel sharper, more pointed. Whoopi leans back, watching closely. This is why these conversations are tricky. Everybody hears something different. Jenna glances briefly at Whoopi, then back to Sunny. I just think it's unfair to expect young actors, or anyone really, to have perfectly polished opinions all the time. We're allowed to learn. We're allowed to grow. Sunny nods, but her expression stays firm. Of course. But growth also means being open to criticism. Jenna doesn't hesitate this time. I am open to criticism. But there's a difference between criticism and trying to control what someone says. The audience reacts again, this time louder. Joy looks between them. Okay, now we're getting into something bigger here. Sunny leans forward again, her tone more intense but still controlled. No one's trying to control you, Jenna. But when you're in the public eye, you don't get to separate your words from their consequences. Jenna meets her gaze directly. And I'm not trying to. I just think people should also take responsibility for how they interpret things. That line creates a ripple through the audience, some applause, some audible reactions. Whoopi steps in again, sensing the rising tension. All right, let's take a breath for a second. But the energy doesn't drop. Sunny sits back slightly, crossing her hands. So you're saying the audience is responsible for any misunderstanding, not the person speaking? Jenna shakes her head. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a two-way street. Joy quietly says, this is getting real. And it is. You can feel that this is no longer just a casual interview. It's turning into something deeper, something more uncomfortable, more honest. Jenna's voice softens just a bit, but the conviction is still there. I just don't want to live in a space where I'm constantly second-guessing everything I say out of fear. That's not healthy either. Sunny responds almost immediately. And I don't want to live in a space where influential voices don't recognize the power they hold. Another pause. The audience is completely locked in now. Whoopi looks between them, then at the camera for a brief second, like she knows this moment is bigger than expected. All right, she says slowly, we're going to continue this conversation, because clearly there's a lot more to unpack here. And you can tell, this is only the beginning. Whoopi leans forward slightly, her voice calmer but firm, trying to guide the conversation without shutting it down. All right, we're going to keep going, but let's remember, this is a conversation. Nobody's here to attack anybody. The audience claps lightly, but the tension hasn't gone anywhere. Sunny turns back toward Jenna Ortega, her tone measured but clearly more direct now. Let me ask you this then, because I think this is where people are getting stuck. When you say you don't want to filter yourself, does that mean there's no line? Or is there a point where you say, okay, maybe I need to rethink how I'm saying this? Jenna doesn't rush to answer. She exhales quietly, choosing her words carefully. There's always a line. I'm not saying people should just say whatever they want without thinking. But I do think that sometimes the expectation is perfection. And that's not realistic. Joy nods slightly, but she tilts her head. But no one's asking for perfection. They're asking for awareness. Jenna looks at her. Awareness of what, though? Because different people define that differently. Sunny jumps back in. Awareness of the fact that your words don't exist in a vacuum. You might mean one thing, but people hear something else, and that matters. Jenna leans forward a little now, matching Sunny's posture. But if we keep focusing only on how things might be interpreted, then nobody's going to say anything meaningful at all. A small wave of applause comes from part of the audience. Whoopi glances toward the crowd, then back at the table. See, this is where it gets complicated. Because both things can be true. Sunny doesn't break eye contact with Jenna. But meaningful doesn't have to mean controversial. Jenna's response is immediate. I'm not trying to be controversial. Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly. But you are. That lands harder than expected. There's a noticeable reaction from the audience, some surprised laughter, some claps. Jenna pauses, then gives a small nod. Maybe. But that's not the intention. Joy leans in, her tone softer now, almost mediating. Intentions are important, but perception is reality for a lot of people. Jenna turns toward her. But should it be? That's what I question. There's a brief silence again. Whoopi watches closely, clearly letting this unfold rather than stepping in too quickly. Sunny speaks again, slower this time. So what you're saying is, if people misunderstand you, that's on them? Jenna shakes her head immediately. No. I'm saying communication goes both ways. I have a responsibility to be clear, yes. But people also have a responsibility to listen fully, not just react to clips or headlines. That gets a stronger reaction, more applause this time. Joy glances toward the audience. They're with you on that one. Sunny notices it too, but she doesn't back off. But that's not the reality we live in. We live in a world where things are clipped, where things are taken out of context. So knowing that, shouldn't you adapt? Jenna's expression tightens slightly, not angry, but more resolute. I think adapting too much leads to losing your voice entirely. Whoopi nods slowly. That's a real concern. Sunny turns briefly toward Whoopi. But there's a middle ground. Then back to Jenna. No one is asking you to lose your voice. We're asking you to recognize the influence you have. Jenna responds, her voice steady. I do recognize it. I just don't think the answer is to water down everything you say. Joy exhales, leaning back slightly. This is like the classic debate, freedom versus responsibility. Whoopi points lightly toward Joy. Exactly. Sunny folds her hands on the table. And I think responsibility has to come first when you're speaking to millions of people. Jenna tilts her head slightly. But who decides what responsible looks like? That question lingers. There's a moment where even the audience doesn't react right away. It's just quiet. Sunny finally answers. I think it's about empathy. Thinking about how your words might affect different communities. Jenna nods slowly. I agree with empathy. I really do. But I also think sometimes people assume the worst instead of trying to understand. A few audience members murmur in agreement. Joy jumps in again. But that goes both ways too. Sometimes speakers assume the audience is attacking them when they're just reacting. Jenna gives a small smile. That's fair. It's the first moment where the tension dips just slightly. Whoopi takes that opportunity. See, now we're getting somewhere. But Sunny isn't finished. She leans forward again, her tone still controlled but clearly passionate. Let me be very clear, Jenna. This isn't about silencing you. It's about making sure that when you speak, you're not unintentionally contributing to something harmful. Jenna looks directly at her. And I hear that. But I also think people underestimate how much young audiences can think for themselves. Sunny responds quickly. And I think people overestimate it sometimes. The audience reacts again, this time louder, more divided. Joy raises both hands slightly. Okay, now we're back in it. Jenna lets out a small breath, almost a quiet laugh, but it's more from the intensity than amusement. I just don't want to be put in a position where I'm expected to represent everyone perfectly. That's not something anyone can do. Whoopi nods. That's true. Nobody here represents everyone either. Sunny glances briefly at Whoopi, then back to Jenna. But you do represent something, whether you choose to or not. Jenna doesn't deny it. Yeah, I represent myself. And I think that should be enough. There's a strong reaction from the audience. Applause, a few cheers. Joy looks impressed. That was a line right there. Sunny pauses for a moment, studying Jenna. Then she says, more quietly but with weight, but when you're on a platform like this, it's never just about you. That shifts the tone again, less heated, more serious. Jenna holds her gaze. Maybe not. But if I lose myself trying to be everything for everyone, then what's the point? Silence again. Whoopi leans forward, clasping her hands. That's the question, isn't it? The audience is completely still now, hanging on every word. Sunny exhales slowly, sitting back just a little. I think the point is balance. Jenna nods. And I'm still figuring that out. I don't have all the answers. Joy smiles slightly. Well, that's the most honest thing anyone's said all day. A small wave of laughter breaks the tension for a second. But it doesn't last long. Sunny leans in one more time, her tone softer but still firm. Then are you open to the idea that maybe some of the criticism you've received has a point? Jenna pauses. This time, the silence stretches longer. You can see the weight of the question settle in. She finally answers slowly. I think some of it does, but not all of it. And I think it's important to know the difference. The audience reacts again, quieter, more thoughtful this time. Whoopi nods. That's fair. Joy adds, that's growth. But Sunny doesn't smile. She just watches Jenna closely and says, the challenge is knowing which is which. And just like that, the conversation feels like it's about to go even deeper. The quiet that follows doesn't feel comfortable anymore. It feels loaded. You can almost sense that everyone at the table knows this conversation has crossed into something much deeper than a typical daytime segment. Whoopi shifts slightly in her seat, glancing between them. All right, let's keep going, because I think we're actually getting somewhere important here. Sunny doesn't waste a second. She turns back to Jenna Ortega, her tone more deliberate now, less reactive and more probing. You said something just now that stuck with me. You said some criticism has a point, and some doesn't. So how do you decide which is which? Jenna exhales slowly, her hands lightly clasped together. I think it comes down to intent and understanding. If someone is genuinely trying to have a conversation, I'll listen. But if it feels like they've already decided who I am based on a headline or a clip, then it's harder to take that seriously. Sunny nods, but her expression doesn't soften. But don't you think that comes with the territory? Being in the public, means people will form opinions quickly. Jenna nods back. Of course. I'm not naive about that. I just don't think that means I have to accept every interpretation of what I say as truth. Joy leans forward, intrigued. So when people push back hard, like really hard, do you ever question yourself? Like, okay, maybe I missed something? Jenna gives a small, honest nod. Yeah, I do. More than people probably think. I go back, I rewatch things, I rethink what I said. But sometimes I still come to the same conclusion. Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly. And that conclusion is? Jenna meets her gaze. That I was being honest. And that honesty shouldn't automatically be punished just because it's uncomfortable. That line hits. There's a louder reaction from the audience, some clapping, a few people audibly agreeing. Sunny leans back just slightly, but her focus doesn't break. But honesty can still cause harm. Jenna responds immediately. So can silence. That lands even harder. The audience reacts again, this time louder, more divided than before. Some people clap enthusiastically, others hesitate, and a few exchange glances. Whoopi raises her hand slightly. Okay, now we're really in it. Joy lets out a quiet wow under her breath. Sunny leans forward again, her voice still controlled, but with a sharper edge. Let's talk about that, because I think that's where people start to feel uneasy. When you say silence can cause harm, are you saying people are obligated to speak out? Jenna shakes her head. No, I'm saying people should have the freedom to speak out without being immediately shut down or labeled. Sunny counters quickly. But labeling happens when people feel hurt. Jenna nods. I understand that. But sometimes the label comes before the conversation even starts. There's a pause. Whoopi watches closely, letting it breathe. Joy looks between them. This is like the internet in real life. A ripple of laughter moves through the audience, but it fades quickly. Sunny continues, her tone more pointed now. But let me ask you something directly. Do you think there's ever a moment where you've spoken and thought later, okay, that didn't come out the way I should have said it? Jenna doesn't dodge it. Yes. That answer seems to catch Sunny off guard for a split second. Jenna continues, more open now. There have been times where I thought, I could have phrased that better. Or, I didn't explain that clearly. I'm not perfect. Joy nods approvingly. That's real. Sunny leans in again. So when that happens, do you address it? Or do you just move on? Jenna pauses. It depends. Sometimes addressing it just adds more noise. Sometimes it helps. It's not always clear what the right move is. Sunny responds. But silence in those moments can also be interpreted as indifference. Jenna tilts her head slightly. Or it can be self-preservation. That line shifts the energy again. The audience reacts, this time more quietly, more thoughtfully. Whoopi nods slowly. That's something people don't always consider. Sunny glances at Whoopi, then back at Jenna. But when you have a platform, self-preservation can look like avoidance. Jenna's expression tightens just a bit. Or it can look like not wanting to engage in something that's already been decided without you. Joy leans back, exhaling. This is complicated. Whoopi gives a small smile. That's because it is. Sunny doesn't smile. I just think there's a responsibility to show up, even when it's uncomfortable. Jenna responds, her voice steady but firmer now. And I think there's a responsibility to not demand constant explanations from people just because they're visible. That gets a strong reaction, applause, a few cheers. Sunny lets that reaction pass before speaking again. But that visibility is what gives you influence in the first place. Jenna nods. I know, and I don't take that lightly. But influence doesn't mean I owe everyone an explanation for everything I say or don't say. Joy glances at Sunny. She's drawing a boundary. Sunny nods slowly. I see that. There's a brief pause where neither of them speaks. The tension isn't explosive, it's controlled but heavy. Whoopi leans forward again. Let me ask something here, because I think this is where a lot of viewers are probably sitting. Is there a middle ground between speaking freely and being mindful of impact? Jenna answers first. I think the middle ground is being honest and willing to listen. Sunny follows immediately. And I think the middle ground is being mindful before you speak, not just after. They both stop, and for a moment, neither interrupts the other. The audience reacts, some clapping, some murmuring. It's clear people are taking sides now. Joy looks out at the crowd. You can feel it, they're split. Whoopi nods. That's what happens when the conversation is real. Sunny turns slightly toward the audience, then back to Jenna. I'm not against you speaking your truth. I just want to make sure that truth isn't unintentionally hurting people who are listening. Jenna responds, softer now but no less firm. And I don't want to live in a world where fear of hurting someone means you never say anything real. That line hangs in the air. No one speaks immediately. The audience is completely quiet now. Whoopi finally breaks it, her voice calm but weighted. That's the tension right there. Joy nods slowly. Yeah, that's it. Sunny exhales, leaning back slightly. I think we're going to keep having this conversation as a society for a long time. Jenna gives a small nod. Probably. There's a brief moment where it almost feels like things are settling. But then Sunny adds one more thing, her tone quieter but sharper because of it. The question is, who pays the price while we figure it out? That lands heavier than anything else so far. Jenna looks at her, and for the first time, there's a flicker of something different. Not just conviction, but a hint of internal conflict. She doesn't answer right away. And that silence says more than anything she could say. Whoopi looks between them again, clearly aware that this moment has shifted the entire conversation. All right, she says slowly. We're going to take a quick pause. But even as she says it, you can tell. This conversation isn't anywhere near over. The break doesn't reset the energy the way it usually does. When the show comes back, the applause is there, the music fades out like always. But it feels different now. Quieter. More cautious. Like the audience knows they just watched something that wasn't part of the usual script. Whoopi looks into the camera briefly, then back at the table. All right, we're back. And we're still here with Jenna Ortega. There's a light ripple of laughter, but it's more of a release than genuine humor. Jenna gives a small smile, but her posture is still composed, still grounded. She hasn't backed away from anything that was said. Sunny sits a little straighter, her tone noticeably calmer now. Not because she's stepping down, but because she's choosing her words more carefully. I want to take a step back for a second, she says. Because I don't think this is about disagreement for the sake of it. Jenna nods. I don't think so either. There's a pause, but it's not tense in the same way as before. It's more reflective. Sunny continues, I think what people are reacting to, what I'm reacting to, is the fear that conversations like this can sometimes leave people feeling unheard. Jenna listens closely, then responds, softer now. And I think what I'm reacting to is the fear of being told that I shouldn't speak unless I get it exactly right. That lands, but differently this time. Not as a challenge, more as an admission. The audience reacts with quiet understanding, a few nods, some soft claps. Joy leans in slightly. That's probably the most honest this has felt the whole time. Whoopi nods. Because now we're not talking at each other. We're actually talking to each other. Sunny glances at Jenna, her expression less rigid now. I don't want you to feel like you can't speak. Jenna meets her halfway. And I don't want people to feel like I'm not listening. That exchange shifts everything. There's a small but genuine round of applause. For the first time since the segment started, it feels like the tension is easing. Not disappearing, but transforming. Whoopi takes a breath. This is what these conversations are supposed to look like. Messy, uncomfortable, but honest. Joy smiles slightly. And a little stressful. The audience laughs, this time more naturally. Sunny lets out a small breath, almost a quiet chuckle. Yeah, a little stressful. Then she looks back at Jenna. I still think impact matters more than intent. Jenna nods without hesitation. And I still think intent matters just as much as impact. They hold eye contact for a second, and instead of clashing, it feels like acknowledgement. Not agreement, but understanding. Whoopi gestures lightly with her hand. And that's okay. You don't have to agree to respect each other's perspective. The audience claps again. Joy adds, honestly, if more conversations went like this, we'd probably be in a better place. Jenna smiles faintly. I agree with that. Sunny nods too. So do I. There's a brief pause where the energy settles into something calmer. But Whoopi, as always, knows how to bring it back to the bigger picture. She looks toward Jenna. Before we wrap, I want to ask you something simple. After all of this, everything we just talked about, has anything here changed how you see your role when you speak publicly? Jenna takes a moment. You can tell she's not rushing this answer. I think it's made me more aware, she says finally. Not in a way that makes me want to be quieter, but in a way that makes me want to be clearer. The audience responds warmly, steady applause. Sunny nods slowly. That's all anyone can really ask for. Jenna adds, but I also think it's important that people allow room for growth. Not just for me, for anyone who's trying to figure things out in public. Joy points lightly. That part. Whoopi smiles. That's real. Sunny gives a small nod. Fair. And just like that, the conversation finds its landing. Not a perfect resolution, but something more real. Whoopi turns toward the camera, shifting into closing mode. Well, this has definitely been a conversation. The audience laughs lightly again. But that's what we do here, she continues. We talk. We listen. Sometimes we disagree. But hopefully we leave with something to think about. The applause builds. Jenna relaxes back slightly in her seat, the intensity finally easing from her shoulders. Sunny glances at her one more time and gives a small, respectful nod. Jenna returns it. Joy leans back, exhaling. I need a nap after that. The audience laughs again, this time fully. Whoopi smiles. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. The music starts to come up, the cameras begin to pull away. But the moment doesn't end there. Because almost immediately, you can imagine what's happening beyond the studio. Clips of the exchange start spreading across social media within minutes. Short segments of Jenna saying, "Honesty shouldn't be punished," begin trending. Another clip, Sunny saying, "Impact matters more," circulates just as fast. People start taking sides. Some praise Jenna for standing her ground, calling her authentic and unfiltered. Others support Sunny, saying she raised necessary questions about responsibility and influence. Hashtags start forming. Debates spark in comment sections. Reaction videos begin popping up before the show has even fully aired in every time zone. Backstage, the energy is quieter. Jenna walks off set, still composed, but clearly processing everything. A producer says something to her quietly. She nods, appreciative but thoughtful. Sunny speaks briefly with another host, her tone calm, reflective, not heated like before. There's no dramatic fallout. No shouting. No storming off. Just that lingering weight of a real conversation that didn't have easy answers. And that's what makes it stick. By the time the episode finishes airing, it's already one of the most talked about moments of the week. Not because it was explosive, but because it was honest. Whoopi's final words echo in people's minds as clips continue to circulate. We don't have to agree, but we do have to talk. And now it turns to you. What do you think? Was Jenna Ortega right to stand firm on authenticity? Or did Sunny make the stronger point about responsibility and impact? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.